Okay, we are back at Politicon, and I'm here with my buddy, and he's one of my favorite Democrats. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't like a lot of you people.
You people?
You people.
You people.
You people.
Hate you
But
people.
I love this guy. We've been actually on a couple of panels together on TV and stuff, and he's a great Democrat. Actually, we had a great conversation after the time.
Yeah.
That we were on.
Right.
We had a conversation about health care and whatnot, and I found it extremely interesting. But the gentleman joining me, and he's sitting directly across from me, and I'm very honored to have him on, Mr. Rick Unger. How are you today, Rick?
I'm very well. I'm enjoying Politicon, getting ready to do my panel tomorrow over in the Sirius XM room
Yes.
with
And-
my fellow hosts.
Yes, and you're part of. Tell them where they can find your regular Sirius XM show.
It's on Sirius XM POTUS at 6 p.m. every evening. It's Steele and Unger, Michael Steele, one-time RNC chairman, and myself.
Awesome. Yeah, RNC chairman. That's funny because one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is the conventions that are coming up, right? There's a lot of controversy surrounding both parties right now, and the candidates and the main candidates, the presumptive candidates, if you want to call them that. Hillary Clinton obviously has the email situation swirling around her, amongst other things, or if you consider her checkered history as a public figure and whatnot. The superdelegate system that exists within the Democratic Party makes it possible that if some action was to be taken by the FBI, by the CIA, whoever, against Hillary Clinton, that they can potentially change their votes in advance of the convention in Philadelphia. First of all, let me ask you this, and I already know the answer, but just explain it to our listeners. Who are you supporting?
Actually, I'm not a big supporter of anybody running for president. If you want to know the honest truth, I will vote for Hillary Clinton because I think she'll be the nominee of the Democratic Party. I wasn't a big Bernie supporter, I'll say that. This has been a tough year for me in terms of candidates, but I think Hillary is certainly the better prepared. It was interesting, I was hearing you say, given her checkered history. Funny thing is, she doesn't have that checkered of a history. Certainly the email thing is a big deal.
And you don't have an issue with Benghazi?
No, because I know what happened in Benghazi, and I think the effort and the report.
Well, what happened in Benghazi? Explain it to the rest of us that don't know. Was it a gun-running operation? What exactly was it?
It was a gun-running operation conducted not by the State Department but by the CIA. The real activity in Benghazi was happening in the annex, not in the building that was torched and attacked. That's what was happening. If you understand that some of these things are covert actions that our government gets involved in, it's not hard to understand, A, why they quickly made up. I never bought the story either, that it was all about a movie. But, they had to come up with something. You can't expose a covert action. My first clue, I know people who were there, and I've had an opportunity to really dig into it. But the minute that I saw the email chain and realized that David Petraeus was the one who was really running the response, it became pretty clear to me what was going on. So, there were some mistakes the State Department made. There were.
How about the actual, and these were requests that were made repeatedly by Ambassador Stevens for additional security?
It's a little convoluted because I've never been able to prove that those requests were made, but they may have been, certainly.
Okay.
But at the same time, the head military individual in that region had offered the ambassador some additional security, and he said no thank you. Now, I'm sure his reason for that was he was not in a position to bring anybody into something that, again, was a covert CIA thing. So I don't know if we're ever going to really know what happened there. I don't think the problem was that there wasn't enough security. I think the problem was, and this was
really, the problem wasn't that there wasn't enough security.
It was who the security was.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
But they were overran by radicals.
Wait, let me finish explaining that.
Sure.
That was the problem. Where I think the State Department erred was in hiring locals to form the security. Those locals were going to turn and run the minute that their own brothers and cousins and who were not security overran that place.
Okay, but isn't ultimately the accountability for that, doesn't that fall on the State Department?
Yes, it does. But I don't think that Hillary Clinton said, "Oh, let them eat cake." Things go wrong sometimes. I don't like what happened there.
Well, they did reach out. They did reach out hours into the attack, where there was still hours before.
Yeah. Actually,
Ambassador Stevens was murdered.
Actually, Ambassador Stevens was actually killed very early in it. Unfortunately, making the best argument you can for bad actions or inactions on the part of the State Department, it would not have saved Ambassador Stevens. Sadly, it may have saved, however, 2 people who did die. One of them over at the annex. Here was the mistake that they made. It was going to be exceedingly difficult to get more help there. But there was one thing they could have done, and they didn't, and it was an error. There were enough drones, let's say, in the area. They should have flown one of them. If they had flown a plane, a drone, anything over the heads of these people who were overrunning it, would have scared them away in a heartbeat.
Exactly.
That to me was the big error.
And they could have mobilized that from Africa or somewhere nearby.
I think there were some even closer. There were drones, I think that was a big mistake. You know what? Mistakes happen. I don't think it's the sort of thing that I'm going to say, I wish they had done a better job, to be sure. But it's not, find me a politician who hasn't made a mistake or run an operation not as well as they should have. There are ways you can certainly criticize Hillary Clinton. I've never been a big fan of the Obama administration's foreign policy, and she was certainly a part of that. So I think that brings some rational criticism down on her if you don't agree with the policy, and I don't.
Okay, let me ask you a question, right? Purely going into Philadelphia, and you said you're not excited by any of the candidates that have ran this year.
You know what the good news is about that? Given what I do for a living, it allows me to be objective.
It's true. Yes. That way you don't have to be a homer. Yeah. You don't have to just go, into...
I don't have to go pretend that I'm objective and be for Hillary Clinton.
Exactly. My candidate fell out of this a long time ago. Right. So, obviously I'm not what you would consider a Trump supporter, but I will support him vigorously over Hillary Clinton should he be nominated. Now, let me ask you in particular regarding the Republican convention.
Right.
Another thing that you're allowed to be objective about.
Sure.
So, all right. Traditionally, and it's never an issue because when we get to the convention, it's already usually decided and there's strong support for whoever the candidate's going to be. This year, because of Trump being kind of a ideological wild card and changing so much in real time, the support has kind of gone left, it's gone right, people don't know where to go with Donald Trump, right? The last time that the delegates were bound by state rules was in 1976 when Gerald Ford ran and he wanted to hold on to his delegates as the incumbent. The incumbent, mind you, that wasn't even elected because he obviously became president over a series of circumstances. Do you think that the delegates, if they feel that Donald Trump does not represent their values, regardless of what the popular vote and what popular opinion is, should they go ahead and vote their conscience and vote for someone other than Donald Trump?
It doesn't matter if I think they should or shouldn't. I can tell you that I'm pretty darn certain that they won't. They will nominate Donald Trump, and for some good reasons, I have to say. It's not, look, there's a lot of controversy over the rules, and my buddy Curly Hoagland has pointed this out to me for years. He's discussed this with me. And
exactly. He's actually where this is all born out of the book that he wrote and a lot of statements that he's made in the public. He's actually a delegate from the state of Colorado. He's involved in the Republican Party.
He's been on the committee for longer than most anybody else. He's a good guy. Curly and I are good friends. He makes some great points, but you don't even have to go to Curly's points. If they wanted to do that, all they have to do is at the Rules Committee before the convention, change it from a majority vote of the delegates to a 2/3 vote, a super majority, which they can do. The Rules Committee can do that.
But Donald Trump doesn't have neither a majority nor a super majority.
Well, he does have a majority.
No, he doesn't.
Why?
He doesn't because he's only accumulated about 40% of the popular Republican vote. If you take out those independents and you take out Democrats voting in open primaries, Donald Trump's support drops to under 40%.
But he has enough to meet the rules of what he has to have.
Yeah, but there's some states are winner-take-all states. Some states are proportional states.
So are you suggesting that if everybody went and voted as they're supposed to on the first ballot, he loses somehow? I don't.
If
think
it's
that's
done
the
by
case.
congressional district, perhaps.
No, just the way the delegates are apportioned.
No, but the states are different. Some are winner take all.
But what you're
all right,
going
let's
back
say
is
Texas.
arguing the rules.
Texas is a proportional state, right? So Cruz won Texas, but because it's a proportional state, he didn't get all those delegates.
Right.
And then in several states,
That's the
Trump
rules.
won.
Them's the rules.
I
didn't make
but
the
those
rules,
rules
but they're
don't
the
apply
rules.
at the national convention.
Why not?
Because they don't. The national convention rules trump state rules.
No, the national convention, they go along with the state rules. I mean,
No, they don't. They set
look,
their
here's-
own
I
rules
can make
package
it-
for every
I
committee.
can make
for
this
every
easy.
convention.
I can
rather.
make this easy. If
Okay.
the rules committee wants to not have Donald Trump be nominated,
They can.
and they think that there are enough votes to make that happen, they can do it.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. And the reason they're not going to do it is you've got 14, 15 million people. God knows why. I don't understand it.
Yeah, I don't either.
But they did,
vote
for
him,
Donald
yeah.
Trump, and that's why they're not going to do it. He will be the nominee. I think probably.
But the
Republican
more than
Party's
14
aim.
million, they comprise the Rubio voters, comprise the Ben Carson voters, the John Kasich voters, and yes, the Ted Cruz voters outnumber the Donald Trump voters.
Yeah.
Aren't you alienating the majority of the Republican base by nominating someone that only had 38% of party support?
Pluralities are nothing new in politics or even football. You know, I mean, pluralities are pluralities.
You want to talk about football?
Because, by
Donald,
the way, you can reverse that argument and say, well, how do you give it to somebody else? They didn't get the majority either. You can't say, well, Donald Trump only got a plurality, so let's give it to Ted Cruz. Well, wait, he got even less votes than Donald Trump. Okay, let's give it to Marco Rubio. We got lots of less votes. So that's kind of a circular argument.
You know, I look at it like this. If you look at closed primaries, which are truly indicative of the feelings of the party, Donald Trump lost 10 out of the first 16 closed primaries.
And all of
6
that-
and 10. That if you brought up football before, would he have made the playoffs? Even in the AFC West,
He
would he have made the playoffs?
Sure, he would have. He had
With a
more
6 and 10
wins.
record?
He had more wins than the other guys. So yeah,
I don't know.
they had
It's
4
tough.
and 10 records.
I
and
don't
2 and
know,
10.
Rick. I don't know.
Listen, I'm certainly not here to support Donald Trump.
No,
but,
but you guys love Donald Trump because Donald Trump guarantees
No.
your side of victory.
I don't agree. I am more.
No, you don't like him. You
No,
like him.
and I don't think that he guarantees us a victory.
Why?
I think you just saw what's happening with what happened in England, Brexit. Don't any Democrat who takes Donald Trump losing for granted is making a very big mistake. He can absolutely win. It's not going to be easy, but it's not easy for any Republican to win because of the demographics and the way the Electoral College shapes up. But don't think that he can't win.
But how
He
did the
can.
Republicans then gain historic gains in the House of Representatives in 2014? How did they regain control of the
word.
Senate in 2014?
One word, and you know what that word is: gerrymandering. Republicans.
Gerrymandering works
Sure.
both ways, though.
Oh no, but it's been Republican. Here's what something very smart was done. And people talk about the Koch brothers. They don't even understand how successful the Koch brothers are. The Koch brothers are very bright. They're actually not bad guys either. They get a bit of a bad rap, and I've actually been guilty of writing terrible
Really,
things about them.
I like them for the most part. I like
But they're
anybody's
not.
free market.
They're not bad guys. But what they were smart enough to do, while everybody was pouring all this money into national politics, they put their money into state politics. And what they did was they allowed Republicans to take over state houses. And state houses, and when the Republicans have control of state government, they get to set the districts, the congressional districts, every 10 years. And yes, gerrymandering is absolutely done by both sides. But right now, it's the Republicans who have that power. So you are. I mean,
But at a historic level, to the point where the majority that the Republicans have in the House of Representatives now is higher than it's been since
for a while.
1928.
Yeah.
So it's been almost 100 years.
It's
since
been very
been
successful. I mean, and I give them credit for it. I really do. Look, if you count the actual vote tallies from both the last 2 congressional elections, there were more Democrat votes cast than there were Republicans votes for the House of Representatives. But it doesn't really matter because the Republicans have control of the House, and and I'm not dissing them for that because what you said is true. Put Democrats in charge of the state house, they're going to gerrymander to benefit Democrats.
That's true. Yeah.
So it's just that's how you have such a successful
Politics is dirty, goddammit.
Hey man,
And I hate it.
but it allows us all to make a nice living. So come on.
Well, that's Rick Unger, ladies and gentlemen, the great Rick Unger. Thank you so much for joining us.
Always a pleasure.
Yes.
Good to be
What do you got going on while you're here?
I like Conservarican.
Conservarican. What are you doing while you're here?
I'm doing a panel tomorrow at 2:00. That's the one where I make all of my conservative friends argue the liberal side, and I make all my liberal friends argue the conservative side.
Wow. How fairly...
I'm all about rational radio.
It's very fair and balanced,
Yes.
you might say.
I'm all about rational radio. That's
Awesome.
what we do.
Yes, exactly. Steele and Unger on Sirius XM, one of the great political shows that's on Sirius XM. And you can catch Rick. What's your Twitter and your website?
At Rick Unger, UNGAR. And the website is Steele and Unger. And we also have a Steele and Unger Twitter, at Steele, STEELE. And you can work that one out on your own. Unger, UNGAR.
Thank you so much for joining
Pleasure,
us,
bud.
man.
Always fun.
The freaking man. Rick Unger, always here with his vape. Putting...
I have these same cards.
He always, and he smokes the vape like right up until the time that the TV starts. Like there's literally like the smoke is still in the air as we go to live
I am
TV.
seriously addicted.
Yes. You know, actually I just got a vape.
Did you?
I got a 3-in-1 vape.
For pod or for?
I got a 3-in-1 vape, which works for wax, dry, and for liquid.
See, I never use wax or dry.
Yeah, me neither.
No, I just
sure,
use the liquid.
if you want to believe that. No, it's actually a great product, but I'm still smoking cigarettes. So I hope I can get to the point that you're in.
You, it's not that hard to make that conversion, and you will actually. I quit smoking cigarettes a long time ago, but I've always been addicted to nicotine. I chew the gum. Right. And I smoke cigars on occasion. But since I got onto the vape, I don't like cigars as much as I used to.
Really?
So it'll actually do that to you.
Mike, the girl that I'm dating right now, she uses a vape.
You got a girl to go out with you?
Yes, I did actually get a girl to go out with me.
Can you verify
And I didn't even have to pay her.
You cannot verify.
You cannot verify.
Cannot verify.
Yeah, it's actually photoshopped photos.
It's rumor.
Exactly. It's a lot of Photoshop going on there.
Did it say on the box that you cannot return? Or?
Yeah, well, you know what it's like. It's actually, I got to make sure that I don't go too rough because I don't want to poke holes and the air come out. Because that
it's expensive
it's terrible.
to have to fix those.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's one of those things. But again, Rick Unger, the great Rick Unger here, one of my favorite Democrats. Actually, one of my only Democrats.
Everybody should have one.
Everybody should have at least one Democrat that they like, and mine is Rick Unger and stuff.
Thank you, sir.
No problem. Hey, Adam, I want to get back to you on. We were talking to Michael Webb, that's running for the congressional district in Virginia, and one of the things that I found kind of interesting is that it seemed like he kind of reversed course on the original answer that he gave to the pornography screenshots that were captured that were kind of famous in a sense. He didn't necessarily change his answer, but originally it was that he was doing research, and then he later kind of tried to justify that it's not really that big of a deal, because the original argument was that I believe he was a pastor's son or something, that there was no possible way that he would have ever delved into that sort of a thing. What do you think of that as far as and you live in the state of Virginia, what do you think as a voter in the state of Virginia hearing that type of an answer from him?
Well, actually, before this, I heard another explanation behind those pornographic tabs that he was had on his computer. One was, I think, that he felt that somebody hacked his computer or something.
It was something about a computer hack,
and he was trying to
research.
Trying to research and see, get more information about who the hacker actually was. So it seems like the story may have changed a couple of times.
Let me ask you a question. The important question is: does it matter? Does anybody give a crap? It's 2016. You could probably go into my cell phone right now and find open pornography. Who cares?
I think it does not matter as much as one would think. But I think he did attack some of the leadership out at least in Arlington, and I know some of these guys on a personal level. From all my experience,
expand on that. Who exactly did he actually attack?
There's a couple of guys. I mean, I don't want to really get into detail, but one of my friends. That's the chair out there for Arlington County, Matthew Rivera. He kind of gave him unfair shake. He's a good guy, and he's a very, very fair person. And he was just going after him, and in his kind of tirade, Basically, it was a little bit just, I think, just like over the top. And that compounded with the fact that he actually, took a screenshot of viewing porn, all within the same tirade. That it kind of like leads one to question whether or not this person is, suitable to actually, run and actually hold a public position, and because ultimately that he will have to be a role model of some sort, and it seems like this guy just might not necessarily be the most responsible person around. But again, basically, back to your question, that he attacked like some guys I know out in Arlington that are, from all accounts, from my experience, very, very credible people. Basically, try to attack their credibility. So I think that compounded with the fact, the other like issues, viewing the porn and having that, those tabs open. I kind of, and also, as you said, the story changed multiple times. So, the credibility is a little bit in question. Whether or not, it matters in isolation, it probably doesn't matter all that much. But then again, like he seemed a little bit like hostile in his exchanges before that and after that. And so it's the bigger context, I think.
Yeah, it seems like it's kind of a confusing state of affairs there. But I think what confuses it even more is that he did lose his primary. So for him to run an independent campaign, what do you think? I mean, and you probably know the landscape better than I do. I don't know what the general sentiment is towards Democrats. I don't know if him as a independent gives a better option or a more viable winning option to actually Republican that may be there.
It doesn't. It doesn't help in one bit at all. Running as
Do you think he's more or less running a spoiler campaign?
I'm not sure what he's basically running. I'm not sure if he actually knows what he's running, what type of campaign. But ultimately, if he wanted to run as an independent, he should have done that just right out of the gate. And to actually try to like compete in the Republican primary, ultimately he still, in my mind, if I was just like an objective guy, and for the most part I was an objective observer of all this shenanigans that happened out in that district. The guy ran as a Republican. Ultimately, the way I see it, he still is a Republican. I mean, he basically he walks like a Republican, he quacks like a Republican, he probably is a Republican. So I don't think that necessarily running as independent, being labeled as an independent, necessarily benefits in one way or the other. And to basically, if he probably, if I was like his advisor, and we could actually go back in a time machine maybe like 5 months ago, or probably longer than that, probably a year ago, I would have encouraged him to actually run as independent. And I think that had he done that, at the inception, ran as independent, and try to basically like tap into like both political demographics, that he may have had a basically a fighting chance. But now I just don't see Michael Webb at all being much of a difference maker in this next congressional race out there. And I'll be honest, I would be surprised if he actually pulls in more than, let's say, like 8%. Certainly, I don't think he'll crack double digits. And so I would say 8% probably is the ceiling for Michael Webb, in my experience.
Okay. Well, that was Adam Garnica with his incredible analysis here of what the situation is. We're going to go ahead, and if you haven't heard it, we're going to go ahead and blast the Andrew Marr interview from last week, Warrior Angels Project. It's something really big that I believe in, and something very important that I think we need to all get behind. But I'm going to go ahead and play that audio for you right now. God bless our heroes overseas and what they have to deal with. It's very, very traumatic, what winds up happening, the PTSD, traumatic brain injuries, and Warrior Angels Project is going far beyond what conventional medicine has done up to this point to help those people.
And Julio, can I basically follow that up, basically, before we actually close out, that again, that I understand that Michael Webb has done several years of military service, so God bless him for doing that. I just don't think necessarily this person, it might be the most qualified person to represent that congressional district. And whether or not it's a Democrat or Republican,
he's going to kick your ass when he sees you. You know that, right? He's going to put on his major military outfit. He's gonna power slam you through a table. Anyway, we're gonna go. No, I'm just joking. That's how we do here on the Julio Rivera Show. But we're gonna run to the Andrew Marr interview, and coming back after the Andrew Marr interview, we have Rick Tyler, former Cruz spokesman. I think we're gonna cut with that guy.
Yeah. Now we're here. This is
Well, I'll leave this because the last time I had to fight with this for an hour to get it to work here. So I'm just going to leave that there. So whatever ambient noise is in the room is going to unfortunately be in the room. But, yeah. That's what happens when you do live radio and you suck at it. What's that? That's what happens when you do live radio. No, me, I suck. Hold on, let me grab my lighter that I stole from the old lady. Yeah, I'm taking my phone, yeah. Last time I left my phone, that was like $15 Uber dollars. $15 Uber dollars ago. Yeah, I'm like a big retard. No, go for it. I don't care. You know what? You can be a dick because I'm always way too nice to everyone. I'm like, okay. Yeah, I'm on
Facebook friends with him too.
Yeah, let me unplug him now.
Hey, Robbie. Look at this nonsense. Look at this. And I was like, I was going to text somebody, look at this crap.
Is he under?
How's that happen? Like, my phone, why is my phone getting that signal that you're live?
His old friend. Julio Rivera show. I'm such a jerk. With my big banners. I'm taking these home. I'm taking them on the fucking plane. I'm gonna be like, fuck you, I'm taking these shits on the plane.
You think they'll fit?
No.
Oh, they'll fit in your bag. Look at this fucking problem.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Oh, that got turned off for some reason.
I'm gonna go walk outside.
All right, I'm just going to continue what we're doing here, and I'm sorry if the Andrew Marr interview got stopped somehow before, and I will restart it now for all you listening.
We've got a little bit on the left and right edge above your shoulders.
Okay.
So kind of saying that above the end.
All right, fantastic. All right, I'm just going to go at... Hi, everyone. This is Julio Rivera of the Julio Rivera Show, and I'm here with Andrew Marr of Warrior Angels Foundation. Andrew Marr is a veteran. He's a hero, American hero, and he's doing a lot to help veterans. And today we're going to ask him some questions so you can get to know him a little bit better. Andrew, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, first of all, Julio, thanks for having me on in Times Square, no less. Pretty cool deal. A little bit about myself. I grew up in Texas, playing athletics, football, led to college, played college football. Once that ended, I really felt compelled to enter the military. Felt a sense of duty where other guys were laying it on the line in combat, my age, and I thought, I'm done chasing my own selfish ambition, so to speak. This is the honorable thing to do, the right thing to do. So that led into the Army. Chose specifically to go into Special Forces from there, and that led into my, our career as a Special Forces Green Beret for about 9 years.
And tell me a little bit about your service, the 9 years you spent in the Special Forces.
Yeah, 3 combat deployments, lots of trips to Southeast Asia, training out the different, our allied forces in Southeast Asia, and Afghanistan was all of my combat rotations.
Okay. Now, while you were there, unfortunately, you had a couple of instances where you were injured, correct?
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
It's interesting because it was never an injury that caused us to think, okay, there's something wrong, or we need to go to the hospital, or higher levels of care. So traumatic brain injury is what it was, and it's from just the general life of a soldier or an operator, right? So my specialty was a Special Forces engineer. So when deployed, I'm an expert in demolitions. And so in and around countless explosions over those 9 years, hundreds if not thousands, it's kind of hard to quantify. So one of my roles was a breacher, and what that means is basically it is getting into denied points of entry. All right, whether it's a door, whether it's a wall, a window, and there's different ways to do that. Mechanical, so there's a lock on there. We can just use a bolt cutter and break it. That's the easy way. Path of least resistance, always is what you want to take. But oftentimes, sometimes you have to use explosive charges. So I would make surgical explosive charges in place.
And that was our interview with Andrew Marr from a couple of weeks ago. We've been replaying that several times on the show. But what we have now is we are blessed with the presence of the controversial street artist, the political artist, Sabo, who's actually an exhibitor here at Politicon this year, Politicon 2016. He's here. He was a huge Cruz supporter and still is, as I am. And we want to talk a little bit about the convention that's coming up in Cleveland. It's coming up from July 18th to the 21st, where the Republican Party will nominate their candidate for President of the United States of America. Presumptively, as we speak, the candidate is Donald Trump. However, there is a movement to stop Trump, or the Never Trump movement, as it's known in some circles. I want to get your opinion. All right, there were 15 million people who voted for Donald Trump. There were significantly more, over 20 million, who voted against Trump. What is your position on what should occur at the convention in Cleveland?
You asking me?
Yes.
Oh man, I'm hoping for a miracle, man. I'm hoping Ted Cruz walks in there with a knife and kills everyone and just takes the house.
You know what? That would be actually a wonderful thing to watch. Actually, it could make a great movie. It could be a great action movie.
Good action movie.
Ted Cruz with a knife. The Second Amendment is irrelevant. No. But let me ask you, Donald Trump has been changing in real time. His positions have gone from extremely conservative at the outset of his campaign to something now at this point where he's meandering in the middle, much like many of the establishment Republicans that he supposedly is supposed to be I guess whether it's an alternative to or what have you. If you're a delegate, an elected delegate, and you supported Donald Trump because you thought that he was going to be a conservative that was going to build a wall, that he was going to keep us safe by preventing refugees from coming over here, unvettable refugees, as was confirmed by James Comey, the FBI director, should you be allowed to, in good conscience, change your vote and vote for someone? It doesn't necessarily even have to be necessarily Ted Cruz, but just another candidate. Should they be allowed to go ahead and do that?
Yeah, my opinion is if you're a delegate and you're representing a body of people, if I would vote for whatever that body voted for in a majority, because I'm there to represent them. In the Marine Corps, you learn that there's a certain number of types of leaders. One of them is, I know what I'm doing. People elected me because they know I know what I'm doing, so I'm going to vote how I feel is best for everyone. And then you have another sort of leader that's like, you know what? 51% said I should do this, and 49% said I should do that. I'm going to go with the 51%. It's like, so that's a very difficult question. It really depends on what type of a delegate or individual we're talking about. Personally, I love this country. I know it's been battered for 8 years. I would probably do something unorthodox and I would do what I think is right, regardless. They made me a delegate. They gave me a vote, and I'm going to vote accordingly, how I think. And because what's going on right now is insanity. It's just sheer insanity. I mean, when I think we were talking about this earlier, I mean, I don't remember how many Republicans were running. Anyone, 13, 16, however many. We would look on the stage and we're like, we got 2016. There's no way we can lose. And we went from that to, huh? How did we do that?
I find it amazing that we voted for I guess, or the majority of not the majority, a plurality more than for any other candidate voted for someone with such historically high negatives, with minorities, with women. Nobody necessarily is excited about this except for the Trump fanatics, which really only comprise a small portion of actual Republicans, and a lot of them are just newly under our tent. It doesn't make any sense that we should feel a moral obligation to hand the nomination to a candidate like Donald Trump. That doesn't really, like I said, he has over 60% of Republicans, registered historic incumbent Republican voters, are against him.
They are. Well, what Donald Trump did is he jumped in there and woke up every fucking moron that shops at Walmart who watches television way too much. Mm-hmm. They're like, hey, I know that guy. He's rich. Mm-hmm. And I'm not involved with politics, never been involved with politics, but I'm going to be involved now because I know him, and,
mm-hmm.
He's a success.
Because I like his show.
I like his show. And you have, man, I live by, you go to these cigar things in Beverly Hills or whatever, and I'm listening to some of these guys talk about pushing for Trump, and it blows my mind. It's like, dude, you don't shop at Walmart. You're not trailer trash. You got your shit to go there. You pulled in here with an Aston Martin. You're smoking a $50 cigar. How are you shitting the bed? I mean, what is your problem? It's like, well, chances are he got his money because his father left it to him. But no, I don't know. It's just weird. This is the spectrum of people that are supporting this guy. And, I mean, if you put their backs against the wall, they'll tell you, oh, well, it's the difference between voting with your mind and voting with your heart. And we know that we're voting with our hearts, but we're still going to do it. It's like, that doesn't even make sense, man. I mean, if you know you're doing the wrong thing, but you're just doing it because your heart feels right, that's I don't know what to tell you. And I don't know.
You know what? It really blows my mind that we've, after everything that we've experienced over the last 7 or so years with Barack Obama, that the two best candidates that we can pick are so flawed. I mean, Hillary Clinton, obviously, we have nothing to do with what's going on that side. That's their mess. They nominated, or they will presumptively nominate Hillary Clinton. But we know better. We know better, and we still wind up with this disaster.
You know why we wound up with this? Mm-hmm. Because a guy like me, we'll go to the store, and we'll see like a tube of toothpaste, and we're like, $7. Shampoo, $9. Man, that's crazy. But we'll go to a bar and we'll spend $14 on a Long Island like it's nothing, and we'll do it 3 times over. Mm-hmm. It's like our priorities are just screwed up, and we're getting what we deserve. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what it's going to take, but I can imagine it can get a hell of a lot worse before it gets better.
Yeah, what's one of the funny things is I had you on my show back a couple of months ago, and you kind of likened the Trump crowd kind of to the crowd that it's like the wrestling crowd, those fans. That same type of incorrigible, non-intellectual, they're not worried about issues. They just want, they like the boom bast, and they love it. And that's what wound up giving us such a horrific presumptive nominee. I mean, I can't even imagine the disaster that we're going to get. Unfortunately, I've kind of put myself in a position where, as a Republican, and I don't know what way to go with it, because I've said I will support the nominee, but I can't support him. He's a maniac.
Yeah.
I mean, what are we getting with this guy? I mean, he changes his positions like people change their underwear.
Yeah.
From one point, and it's literally gotten to the point where I don't know what I'm going to do, and some people are expecting me to support him somehow if he's nominated, but I can't see myself doing it in wholeheartedly, where my heart is behind it, like it was behind Senator Cruz.
Well, I would tell you just don't vote or vote for a third party or write in P. Diddy or something.
Yeah, let's vote for Sylvester Stallone. Let's write in Sly, Rambo.
Like I was telling you, hold out for 2020. We'll get 20 of the best conservative Republicans on the fucking planet. And then Sylvester Stallone will decide he wants to run, and every moron in the world is going to vote for him because he's Sylvester Stallone. Or Bruce Willis.
I'm voting for Kanye. Yeah, I'm holding out for Kanye.
Or Kanye, and it's like, it doesn't matter. I mean, this is what we deserve. And you know what? This is what we deserve. So deal with it.
Yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're doing here at Politicon, Sabo?
I hate doing shows. I hate gallery shows, all that stuff. But, I really didn't even think I was going to be bringing some pieces here. But like as usual, I figured the 11th hour they're going to call me up and say, "Hey, can you bring some pieces?" So, and they did. So I brought 5 pieces, and it's my way of taking a dump in the middle of L.A. and no one can clean it up. It's like you're forced to look at it. Whereas when I put stuff out on the street, it like gets cleaned up in a day. But yeah.
And we've gone black.
No, but
in the interview room.
So, yeah, I kind of enjoy doing it to a small degree. I figure, fuck it, why not? It's like, this is the way you get your name out there. And I run across some left-wing artists while I'm here, and it's fun, on that level, I guess.
Yeah.
But
that's awesome. Listen, tomorrow we will be here and we'll be broadcasting live. Can you join us tomorrow again?
Yeah, I'll give it a shot.
And what are you doing later?
I don't know.
We were trying to figure this out with Adam earlier.
Oh,
yeah. What exactly is the plan? The post-Politicon
we went from we're having dinner with Ann Coulter to I have no idea, and I think that's where it sits. Someone wants me to do some work tonight, and it's like,
no, dude, it's the Sunset Strip. It's rock and roll.
Dude, I'm not 20 anymore. I've done the Sunset Strip.
No, well, I haven't. So this is my first time in LA. I'm a LA virgin.
Hey, you're the last kind of person I want to do the Sunset Strip with because I'll wind up in a cell block.
Exactly. Well, hey, dude, we got bail money, and so that's all you got to worry about, my man.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. Sabo, the great Sabo. And tell us to everybody where they can reach you and buy your artwork and give you lots of money.
Oh, yeah. Well, okay. You can go to unsavoryagents.com, and I strongly advise, or not advise, but it would be nice if you contribute to right-wing artists, right-wing creatives on any level. Because, the left is very, very big on that. We need to learn to start doing
it's
the same.
Hearts and minds, and that's one of the things that your Rebel Ted Cruz piece did. It brought a lot of people, it changed a lot of people's minds, and that conservatism could be cool. And what's cooler than living free?
Yeah.
Honestly. Like, why do you want to be a subject of the government when the government is supposed to be a government of the people?
Yeah, I mean... Yeah, you can't be punk rock if you don't have the First Amendment.
Exactly. So. You can't be punk rock without the First Amendment.
Yeah.
That's a great way of saying it. Thank you so much for joining us.
All right, cool, man. Thanks for having me.
All right, brother. And that is Sabo. And on the other side of the break, we're going to have Rick Tyler, former Cruz spokesman, 2016. Thank you.
Find the Lanterns Radio Network on Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, iTunes.
They can intercept this transmission at any time, so I'll be brief. The fight is here. The time is now. Go behind enemy lines.
YouTube, and other social media by searching keyword Lanterns Buzz or Lanterns Radio Network.
We are controlling transmission.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Julio Rivera Show is on.
And thank you, and we're back here with our continuing coverage of Politicon 2016 from Pasadena, California. And I am joined now by Mr. Rick Tyler of MSNBC. He was a former spokesman for the Cruz campaign, Cruz 2016. And I got to ask you, Rick, based on all the chirping, and I know I worked directly with Steve Lonigan earlier in the campaign, when we were actually, Cruz was still in it and whatnot, and he's, along with Courageous Conservatives PAC, pushing the narrative of the unbinding the delegates or delegate sovereignty, if you will, refer to it as that. What is your position as far as what the delegates' responsibility is in Cleveland at the convention?
Well, we have a political party. We're basically a two-party system, and the parties should absolutely be able to control what it is who they want to put up as their nominee. I know that's difficult for people to understand, and they say, well, that's not really fitting into democracy. But the fact is, everybody who complains that the Republican Party or the Democratic Party, for that matter, is rigged, has an opportunity to join the Democrat or the Republican Party and be part of that process and that system. And so sort of extricating yourself and say, well, I don't want to be part of a Democrats or Republicans. The problem is that you have two choices then. You can remain unaffiliated. They love to call themselves independent, but the truth is in most states they're not independent, they're dependent. And why do I say that? Because they are waiting for the two parties to select their nominees, and then they have to choose between the nominees. And that's where we are today with Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, is the two parties selected their nominees, and if you were in a state where independents couldn't vote, then you were dependent and you had no say in the process. Or you could form your own party. Now, that's been done 1,000 times and not very successfully. But I ask people to look at the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, and they say, well, I can't really get along with the Republicans because they don't believe enough of this. Well, right, but if you don't join them, then we have less people who would move in your direction, because one person can actually shape the way the party is. I mean, look at Bernie Sanders. He's shaping the platform. He's moving the party to the left. He's just one person, and he hasn't actually been a Democrat at all his life, but he's having the most effect on actually moving that party more toward the left.
Well, the difference I see with that, though, is that Hillary Clinton at least has a majority of support within her party. Donald Trump, if you take out independent voters in open primaries, Democrats in open primaries, or what have you, has only consolidated less than 40% of the Republican base. So a majority, and a pretty overwhelming majority of Republicans, have actually rejected Trump.
Well, and that's a useful statistic to carry forward to the general, but the fact is, those are the rules going into the cycle. Everybody knew them. Everybody competed under those rules, and he won under those rules, which was ironic because he actually was the
But the convention rules, so do you not believe that the convention rules or the national party rules trump the individual state rules?
Well, the convention rules are written. This is a misconception about the convention, and so you'll hear, and Donald Trump was the first one when he was losing, to say that, they're going to try to change the rules at the convention. Well, they change the rules at every convention. They've done that since 1856. So the people know that 1 week before every convention, every 4 years, the Rules Committee goes in and they look at the recommended changes that the party has put forth, and they either accept them or reject them or amend them or make their own or throw it all out, and then all that goes to the floor, and then all the delegates at large have to vote on the rule changes, and it's an up or down vote. So if there's a rule change in Cleveland and they send it to the floor and the delegates reject it, we go back to the 2012 rules. It's very simple. It's binary, and so.
But they're never bound, actually, as far as convention rules. The 112 members of the Rules Committee will write these rules, and the delegates will vote on the rules package. Yeah. But is it not correct that only in modern times, in 1976, were bound delegates based on state rules actually bound at the convention based on those rules? It was the last time it happened was when Gerald Ford was the incumbent president who hadn't been elected in, and he made, in order to hold on to his delegates against the Reagan insurgency, he made it a point that the state rules would actually apply at the national convention.
It's a great piece of trivia. Gerald Ford was the only president who was never elected, and then he went on to run re-election and he lost. But here's what happens is all of these rules, for the most part, we don't pay a lot of attention to them because they're meaningless, up until they are meaningful. That is, in most conventions that we've seen year after year, Mitt Romney was the nominee, everybody accepted that. John McCain was the nominee, everybody accepted that. Bob Dole was the nominee, everybody accepted that. George W. Bush was the nominee. Right. So
but they were winning going away.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
They were winning going in.
But now, when it does matter, like if there were a contested convention, I don't know that there will be. There might have been, and then all those rules get stress tested. The same way in the legal profession, laws get stress tested. So politicians write law, and it all sounds great right up until you go to court, and then a good lawyer says, well, that's not exactly what the law says, Judge. And the judge says, well, you're right, because these politicians wrote it, and it's not very good, and they throw it out, and then the politicians have to go back and perfect the law. And that we don't get to do that in the parties very often because we don't actually ever stress test our rules. Now, if there is, let's say, just for the sake of argument, that Trump keeps losing by double digits and the party gets nervous and they finally decide, you know what, to save the party, we gotta get rid of Trump. So let's change the rules and unbind the delegates, or the conscience clauses now is being out there. I don't think right now, as it stands, the conscience clause has a prayer of passing because it's very difficult to beat somebody with nobody, and that's where they're at now. They need to be somebody with somebody else, and then we'll see if that works. And so, but if Donald Trump's numbers get bad enough, and people say, this is going to be cataclysmic for the party, and we really got to replace him, and it's like this is going to be chemotherapy, and it's going to make us all sick, but the cancer is going to kill us. If it gets to that point, sorry for the analogy.
No, that's fine.
But but then the rules will absolutely be stress tested, and we'll see how that plays out.
Let me ask you, Mr. Tyler, and I was a huge Cruz supporter the entire time. I was definitely a believer that until maybe through my own sheer ignorance, because I wasn't as well versed in the convention rules as I am now.
Yeah, it's
a
great civics lesson, isn't it?
Exactly.
Everybody
Even
wow,
weeks ago.
There are rules.
I mean, I was the day of the Indiana primary. I was actually on a panel with Roger Stone, and we were on television. And my fighting, like my war cry was, until there's 1237, you don't have 1237.
Well, that's right.
And I was very disappointed when Senator Cruz conceded, suspended, whatever you want to call it.
After Indiana.
Exactly, after Indiana, because Donald Trump still had over 150 delegates to get before he actually became presumptive or whatever. What was your personal feeling? Did he suspend too early?
No, I don't think so. There's always never say never, what if, forever. But the fact is, if Cruz couldn't win Indiana, a state that he should have been very favorable in, that has a very conservative governor, that has a very conservative record of voting for real conservatives, if he couldn't win that, then it was unlikely he was going to win the next round of states, which included California, Washington, Oregon, states that were not going to be very friendly to him. And in the political world, you have capital, and your capital is preserved by not diminishing yourself. And I think in with Bernie Sanders is a good example on the other side. He clearly has lost, and yet he's still in the race. And actually every day, and he stays in the race because he wants leverage. The fact is, every day he stays in the race, he loses leverage because he diminishes himself.
Really? So you don't think that there's any possibility that, let's say, and I know the likelihood of an indictment or anything coming forward on Hillary Clinton diminishes by the day, because it seems like our government has no interest in prosecuting her for her crimes. But because they have their system of superdelegates, they don't have to. They're not bound by any sort of party rules or anything like that. If they want to go ahead and change their minds, thinking ahead that during the course of a national election, Hillary Clinton compromises their opportunity to win based on what she has allegedly done, do you think that Bernie Sanders staying in the race actually helps him maybe sway some of those superdelegates over to his side?
I don't think hope is a strategy.
Good point. No, that's great. That's actually a great line. Yeah.
And so who knows, right? So let's say she gets indicted, and then they make a rules change, which seems to be going in that direction. That it's interesting history about as far as I understand it, the superdelegates. The superdelegates were put in place in the Democratic Party so that the famous people, the politicians, and the not so famous people, but the people they wanted to go to the convention, which were the
elected
donors.
officials that
Right.
already had a track record of getting votes.
So they set aside this group of delegates so those people would be guaranteed to go. But the purpose of it was to keep it from the little guy from competing with the big guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
In our party, we don't do that. We do that. We let the big guys go up against the little guys, and the big guys win because they have name recognition. They decided not to do that. Now, their one flaw is they unbind those delegates. Now, so a lot of people are now saying they should, in fact, bind those delegates. If, and again, hope is not a strategy, but if Hillary were somehow to be indicted, then those superdelegates could change their mind, and there's enough of them that Bernie could secure the nomination. Maybe that's why he's in the race, but I think that's a highly unlikely scenario, about as likely as a 747 crashing into the Philadelphia convention.
Yeah, how do we get to this point is the question that I always ask myself. Is like, we saw what happened in 2014. And I think actually what happened in 2014 kind of led into what happened now. I think we had Republicans take over. They were like, oh, we got to have the Senate. We got to have 2/3 in order to make a difference. We gave Republicans the Senate. And then we got the Cromnibus. Then we got the Omnibus. There's no reason...
Which funded Obamacare, which funded every government program, which funded everything the Democrats wanted.
Exactly. So it's like, if we're giving these concessions... Why should they vote for a conventional Republican? And unfortunately, and I think rather unfairly, Ted Cruz was perceived as another Washington, D.C. politician, another Republican. Right. And I've watched him from the moment he got to the Senate floor. He's been my guy. I mean, he's just a champion, a fighter, a conservative leader, just everything that you would ever want in a constitutional defender in our unconstitutional times. And unfortunately, he was a victim of this unfair perception that he was part of the system. And somehow Donald Trump, that has been funding the politicians that comprise the system, is seen as the insurgent outsider. Well, I can't wrap my head around it.
So here's what happens is, in every election year, you have a political environment. It's like where the people are at. So if you look at Great Britain, the Brexit is a great example. All the elite politicians, the Prime Minister, Barack Obama went over, and all the elite said, we absolutely have to, have Britain stay or the UK stay in the European Union, or all these terrible, terrible things would happen. And what happened was the people didn't believe the politicians. And now I think that's a warning to Hillary Clinton's campaign, because people do not believe the politicians. And the reason I think Ted, in the political environment, didn't prevail is because Donald Trump's, and he gets to do this, he successfully maneuvered, Donald Trump successfully maneuvered Ted Cruz into the politician camp. And so what it is all the articulate, knowledgeable politicians who can go out and wax eloquent on policy, the voter has looked at them with suspicion now. They don't believe them. They say, and
rightly so, based on the performance of a lot of them.
And Ted is a trained prosecutor. Our 9 cases before the Supreme Court. He is supremely articulate, incredibly smart. He's a great strategist. But he got maneuvered into the position of, you're just one of those politicians who speaks really nicely and seems like you know everything, but are we going to vote for you and just be disappointed? Now, Ted had a track record, which is sort of a shame, because when push came to shove in Washington, Ted stood with the people of Texas. He didn't stand with the politicians.
Even as Solicitor General, he has a long storied history of fighting important cases, defending the sovereignty of Texas against international law.
Yeah, but you got to explain all that, and that's true. And Donald Trump said, it was interesting. One of the things we did that was sort of controversial in the campaign, instead of spending all the time in Iowa, we actually went through the South and the so-called SEC primaries, because we believed,
which was a big disappointment, unfortunately.
Well, that was what was going to be strong for us, and those people did come out for Ted Cruz. Unfortunately, I think those same people we saw, who came out in huge numbers, who liked Ted Cruz, just like Donald Trump that much better. And so it was
with no real reason to like him.
Well, track record. It was. I think it's rational, though. It's a rational decision. It's not my decision. I didn't like the decision. But when people say, okay, should I vote for the politician and risk the status quo, or should I vote for someone who is certain to just shake everything up? and they've decided that let's just try this. Let's try to shake everything.
Let me ask you a question, though, because you just made a point there. It's somebody who's certain to shake things up. What does the supposed shakeup? I mean, obviously, I don't know if you believe that he actually will. But what do you think of Donald Trump presidency looks like?
In fact, here at Politicon, I just got through a panel saying I don't believe he'll do that. I don't, because he has no track record of it. But the people do, and so politics is about perceptions. It's not about the reality, because what he's doing is he's projecting a future promise of what he will do as president, and people have to make a calculation. They have to say, do I like the changes they say they're going to impose, or do I not like them? And B, do I believe they'll do them, or do I believe this? So right now, between Hillary and Donald, we have a binary choice, right? There's no market share in politics. You get 100%, you get 0%. And so, what is certain is that Hillary Clinton will maintain the status quo. That's a certainty.
Yeah, we know that. We do know that for sure.
She's a consummate bureaucrat. And so things will basically be the same.
Her idea of actual universal health care was even to the left of Obama.
Well, that's right. No,
I mean, she had elements of like 1930s Germany health care, where like if a doctor practiced outside of the scope of the government control, that was a prosecutable crime.
Well, it's all interesting. What's really fascinating about Obamacare is you can actually buy a non-compliant Obamacare policy. You can buy one today. It's called a short-term policy. You can buy it up to 364 days, and then you can just renew it. Now you can be denied, and they can deny you on pre-existing conditions. But there are what the politicians don't understand. In the same way the mortgage collapse is, what they didn't understand about the mortgage collapse is they ran all the numbers about the mortgages, and they said it's safe. All of these derivatives are going to cover the mortgages, and it's sound. You know what they didn't count on? What? People didn't pay their mortgages.
Yeah.
They made a rational decision. They said a mortgage is a contract, and in the contract it says if I don't pay my mortgage, they'll foreclose and take my house. And they said, okay. And that was their rational decision, because they were so upside down on the house. It was better to get out of the deal and lose the house than it was to keep the deal, and that's what they didn't count on. So in Obamacare, what they didn't count on is millions of young people decided not to buy insurance. And by the way, nobody's paid a fine. And a lot of people who make a lot of money, I don't make a lot of money. I'm not Donald Trump, but I don't buy a compliant ACA. I pay a fraction of what I would pay for an ACA, and I pay the fine, which nobody's paid the fine because they haven't imposed the fine. So I literally save thousands of dollars on healthcare and have better healthcare by buying a non-AC. But no one talks about this.
And it's the insane part about it is I think it was the change of making healthcare from basically making it a right, because you can't be denied healthcare based on pre-existing conditions, and you can't be denied health care based on inability to pay. Right. But something, at the end of the day, somebody has to pay.
Somebody has to pay, and when you have no downward cost pressures, quality of care suffers. If there's no cost to it, there's demand. It's called third-party purchase, right? So how does a third party? So say you go to a restaurant, and the waiter comes by and he says, "Would you like a glass of orange juice?" And you say, well, how much is that? And they say, well, Mr. Rivera, that's $4. You say, well, no, I could do without the orange juice. Except, Mr. Rivera, today it's free. Well, go ahead and just keep pouring those oranges. See, that's a third-party purchase. See, you are consuming something that you didn't pay for. So you don't care about two things. You care about the quality, but you don't care about the cost. Yeah. Now, a third-party purchase is when you purchase something with somebody else's money for something you're not going to consume. And so, therefore, you don't care about the cost because it's not your money; it's the taxpayers' money. And you don't care about the quality because I'm not personally consuming it. So you get that's how costs rise. It's called downward cost pressures. And I mean, it's axiomatic in the free market. Yet we act like somehow if you force people into something they're going to buy and it's all a monopoly, then somehow the insurance companies are going to say, oh, we should just cover everything and do it. No, they'll go bankrupt, and that's what they're doing. That's why United Healthcare and Blue Cross just is pulling out of Minnesota. United Healthcare is pulling out all over the place. Now guess what they don't have? We have higher costs, no choice, lower quality. You're going to lose many people lost their doctor, and it's not going to work. But this isn't like a theory. This is like a theory. This is historically, empirically find-outable. I like to say.
Yeah.
But yet now we're finding out that you're not going to save $2,500. It's going to be a lot more expensive. But what's amazing, Julio, is that there's so much money in healthcare that if you actually move to a free market system, you could actually cover people with pre-existing conditions. There's a way to do it, or there's a way to
change the pools.
You change the pools, but you also make sure that people have choice. For a market to work, people need access to information. They need to know what the quality is, and they need to know how much it costs. Like if you said today, I got to get a hip replacement, and you went to the hospital and said, how much is this hip replacement? They have no idea. They can't tell you how much it's going to cost. So how do you shop? Now, but you would never shop for anything any other way. You wouldn't shop for a house this way. You wouldn't shop for an iPhone this way. You check the quality and you check the cost, and you make a decision. Now, so if I had to have a heart transplant, do I want to go to the hospital that kills people, or do I want to go to the hospital that saves people? I'd probably want to go to the ones that they're pretty good at it.
Good choice.
Right.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You know what? I can't and as much as I hear about it, it just angers me. When Jonathan Gruber, who was one of the architects of Romneycare, came out and he went on his speaking tour, and he was explaining the way that they wrote Obamacare in order to get it passed.
He was truthful.
He was truthful.
Yeah, he told how he told how he lied.
He told how he lied. So he told the truth about how he lied in the first place. But I can't believe that we haven't gotten past like that as a society or as a voting. Like I don't understand how Hillary Clinton can possibly still poll better than Donald Trump. I don't know why we haven't had a complete and total national rejection of liberal policy based on that lie and how great a lie it is and what it's done to destroy the job market. The job market's been destroyed by Obamacare. The cost of health care has been destroyed by Obamacare. Why don't people get it? Is it the media? We're here at Politicon in Los Angeles, which is a primarily somewhat more of a left-leaning event. Why? Yeah, I know. I just had Unger on, and I was like, "You're my favorite. You're my most tolerable Democrat," because I've actually done panels with him before. But just in general, why doesn't America get it that big government is the enemy?
So when I was growing up, there was basically 4 channels: ABC, NBC, and CBS. And PBS, right? And each of them had their own anchors. So there was Walter Cronkite, Roger Mudd, Harry Reasoner, Howard K. Smith. I mean, these are old journal. And when they said something, you mostly believed it. And everybody sort of consumed all the same news media. And in general, people might have been skeptical, but it was kind of, this is the way it is. Now, you can get up today as a conservative, and you never have to listen to the liberal point of view, like ever. Like don't turn on the liberal television networks.
Well, that would hurt you because you're part of MSNBC.
That's right.
Now.
And they do have a conservative voice in MSNBC. And there's
thank God they have one now.
There's a few Republicans over there, but you can literally, you don't. So like if you're a conservative, you can wake up and listen to some talk radio show. And
there's definitely a market.
It's probably conservative, and you can read National Review, or you can read any number of conservative news outlets. You can watch,
you can read my blog on Newsmax.
I would argue that Fox News is probably not conservative, but it's
not so much anymore.
It's probably more conservative than. But so anyway, it used to be you would have, and I know this is radio, but think of an ellipse. It's just one like mountain, and that's how the way the voting block was. Is you would look at this and you'd say, well, I'll try to go get a candidate who's a little over here, and I'll take a little of theirs, and I'll take all of mine, and that's how I'll win. Well, that's not how it is. There's no middle left anymore. It's actually 2 ellipses like this, because conservatives and Republicans, other than at Politicon, which is wonderful, they don't eat at the same restaurants. They don't watch the same movies. They don't go on the same vacations. They don't shop at the same stores. They don't consume the same media. So they have polarizing ideological differences, which is why Politicon is so interesting, because we're all here, liberals and Democrats, and conservatives and Republicans, all together, kind of just hashing out the issues. And for the most part, I think it's been very, very civil.
And let me ask you, in closing, I want to ask you one final question. Where do you see the Donald Trump constituency? Where do they fall on that spectrum to you, based on what you're seeing?
I think that the overwhelming number of voters who are supporting Donald Trump, I mean, they're basically white, middle class, lower class, non-college educated, who have had a horrible time over the last 8 years making ends meet. They haven't really gotten a raise. If they've lost their job, they've struggled to get a new one. Some of them are working multiple jobs, and they're working really hard, and they're not making it. Their buying power has gone down. They're looking at their kids in college educations, and they're really struggling. And they know inherently that Washington is screwing this up, and they're right, because, like you say, Obamacare killed the job market. Anytime the government interferes with the market, you distort the market, because the market basically, the free market basically can be described as it's a voluntary system, right? If you offer a product or a service and I want it more than the dollars in my pocket, then I voluntarily give them to you. But if I don't want it, I choose not to do that. But every time the government rigs the game or gets involved in the system, it distorts the market. And the reason is CEOs have one responsibility, that is to their shareholders. And the shareholders are people who have 401ks, so they're not always the rich people. They're people who have pension funds. And his responsibility is to his shareholders to provide value to increase their value of their shares. And that means he's got to make a profit. So he's got to run all the efficiencies because he's competing to make the best products. That's how we get iPhones and Apples and all the products there, all the left loves, is because of competition and innovation. And so that's his job. A politician's job is quite different. A politician's job is to stay in power. So they will do anything to stay in power. Now, some compromise their integrity, some compromise their character, some lie, some cheat, some steal, some go to jail for it. But they have no. So if a politician is in charge of the market or a company, do you think their decision is going to be made for a profit, for a better product? No, their decisions are all going to be surrounded by staying in power. So they will promise things to their constituencies that they can't possibly deliver. I think the Birdie campaign is a good example of all that. These are.
Well, he thinks. I truly believe that he thinks he can.
No,
do that.
I think he's.
I don't think he's a shapeshifter.
I respect him because I think he's honest, and I think he does absolutely believe these things, and I think he's authentic. But it's a fantasy because that's not the way human beings function.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining. We had Rick Tyler, former spokesman for the Cruz 2016 campaign, and now you are a correspondent or contributor to MSNBC.
Yes.
You are on there regularly. One of the only people I can tolerate on that network. No, I'm just kidding. But thank you so much for joining us.
Give us a try.
So
Thanks,
much.
Julio.
God bless, and enjoy your time at Politicon.
Will. Thank you very much.
Alrighty, and that was Rick Tyler with some very, very insightful commentary there on Donald Trump, the delegates, the race in general. What are we going to get in 2016? Who's going to be taking the oath in January of 2017? An interesting question. My name is Julio Rivera. We're going to be signing off right now for the day. I'll be back tomorrow with more guests and another huge show. We're actually going to put together a compilation of today's show as it was kind of slapdash thrown together very, very unprofessionally, but I will get it together for tomorrow. I promise. And Adam Garnica will be with us for more. We'll have Steve Malsberg tomorrow, amongst others. God bless.